By April 6, 1917, the day the U.S. formally entered World War I, Spokane residents already had been fighting with Germans for 3 years, but not on battlefields. They were brawling in Spokane's movie houses and saloons. Tensions ran so high in Spokane after the war broke out in Europe in 1914 that the mayor wanted to ban newsreels. He didn't, yet it illustrates the tense atmosphere that existed in Spokane during the 3 years that the U.S. stayed neutral in the war. In 1915, the Lusitania, a passenger liner, was sunk by German torpedoes with great loss of life. The war at sea came home to Spokane in May of 1917 when Mary E. Hoy and her daughter Elizabeth Hoy of Spokane perished when a German submarine torpedoed the liner Laconia in the Atlantic Ocean. President Woodrow Wilson asked Congress for a declaration of war on April 2, 1917. Young men in Spokane already had been enlisting in droves, but after the declaration, the pace picked up dramatically. By July of 1918, Spokane's Army Recruiting District had enlisted more than 11,000 men. Thousands more joined the U.S. Navy. About 200 Spokane area men would never return from war. On June 12, 1918, 17-year-old Charles Birch, a Lewis and Clark High School student, was one of 4 soldiers who volunteered to set up a forward outpost. But the 4 members of Company I, 161st Infantry, were soon surrounded. They dodged the ambush but were killed by a German shell. Birch's last words as he lay dying were, "Tell Company I that we didn't run from 'em." He was one of at least 20 Lewis and Clark students and graduates to die in the war. All through the war, the demand was insatiable for trained nurses at the front. Many Spokane nurses volunteered. By mid-1918, about 67 of Spokane's estimated 240 nurses were serving with the Army or the Navy. The president of the local Nurses Association said that the war effort would require the service of 1 out of every 3 nurses. And nursing could be hazardous too. Noreen Royer, a graduate of Spokane's Sacred Heart Hospital Nursing School, died in France of pneumonia 4 months after enlisting. On the home front, Spokane residents supported the war effort by volunteering for the Red Cross, which provided aid for soldiers and war victims. People raised their own war gardens to free up more food to be sent to Europe. Spokane Industries worked with federal authorities to maximize production of war necessities. Early in the war, Spokane's Fort George Wright served as a receiving camp for local recruits. During one 3-day stretch in December of 1917, more than 1,100 recruits arrived. The commanding officer asked some recruits to go back downtown to sleep. He did not have enough beds. Most of the recruits were shipped out by rail to Camp Lewis near Tacoma as soon as possible. On November 11, 1918, the Spokesman-Review's gigantic headline shouted, "World War Ended." News of the armistice ignited the largest, wildest, most delirious celebration the city ever witnessed, said the paper. A big bonfire burned at Main Avenue and Monroe Street. An effigy of Kaiser Wilhelm swayed from a guy wire at Riverside Avenue and Howard Street. Marching bands paraded through downtown. An endless stream of autos honked their horns. Boys and girls danced down the center of Riverside. A century later, Spokane has several modest memorials to those who served and died in World War I. In the entrance hallway of Lewis and Clark High School, a plaque honors 20 LC students who gave their full measure of devotion in the Great War of Nations. A similar plaque at North Central High School honors 9 students who answered America's call in the war for democracy.